Welcome to the Ocean Tribe Hangout, where we chat with water humans from across the world. We focus on passion, representation, and most importantly, inspiring the world to venture into the most beautiful place, the ocean.
So
Let's
today's
tuck in.
live, we're going to be chatting to a lady called Megan Rose, and she is a conservationist. She is a freediver. She's an educator. I've seen her do a whole lot of beach cleanups. So I think she's part of the organizing part of it. She's an operations manager for the beach co-op, company called the Beach Co-op. So we're going to be chatting to her, and I'm so excited because it just feels like I'm finding all of these phenomenal humans across the world, to share discussion with. And I see Megan is here. Let us, Megan, please send me a request to be a part of the video. I don't know if you. Hi everybody, thank you for joining the live. I see your hellos. Hello Amelia, hello everybody. Hello Joanne, thank you for joining us. We're just waiting for, yay! Hello.
Hi, wait, my light's a bit weird, but okay.
No, don't worry. My lighting is always weird. How are you doing? Can you hear me properly?
I can.
Perfect. Can everyone in the chat hear us properly? Is our audio fine? Are we good? Give us some love. Tell us we're good. Tell us you can hear us. I see Nazoa is like fire. Megan, how are you? I'm so glad you are here. I'm so glad you agreed to be a part of this live. Tell us about you. Tell us hold on, let's start here. How's Cape Town? I saw you guys have snow.
Yes, there is snow. It's getting a bit warmer now though, so it's not like as much as it was. But on the mountains, it was definitely snowing the last few weeks. It's warmed up a bit now as well.
That's so incredible because I don't think it's ever snowed in Joburg, like ever. In my 100 years of living, I don't ever remember seeing snow.
Must come to Cape Town for the snow then.
Girl, I picture those picturesque American movies. You know, when you're like trekking up some mountain and there's like snow-capped mountains everywhere and you just feel like you are the hero in a Superman movie.
I haven't been to snow in a while, but I definitely want to go next time for sure.
Absolute. Tell us about yourself. This is always my question. Tell us about what's your thing, what's your love, what's your passion maker? What is it that when you wake up, you just kind of figure, oh my word, what's your thing? Tell us about it.
It's definitely the ocean for sure.
Oh.
I love the ocean, love spending time there. If I'm away for too long, I literally get sick. So
yeah,
being in the ocean, shading the ocean with people and children, getting them to love the ocean and to protect it, because I'm a marine conservationist and I love sharing the ocean with the community and with everyone around it, because all of our ocean, and we need to look after it because it looks after us.
Okay, so you've said like all of my heart's triggers. You've mentioned ocean, you've mentioned children, you've mentioned communities, you've mentioned us taking care of the ocean. But how did you get to that place? How did you get to discover the ocean? So when you were a baby, were you always at sea? How did it come about? Did it come naturally that's just what you wanted to do? How did it all come about?
So when I have two older sisters, and when we were younger, we were lucky enough that our parents would take us out to natural places all the time. And whenever we were in the ocean, I felt really happy. And I wouldn't necessarily go and swim. I would go and I'd take a little net with me and I'd go straight to the rock pools and look for the animals. So I'd go exploring around. I used to fish as well. but I think I've always had a love for water as well. Because
Yeah.
my swam, they used to swim competitively. I used to just do different water sports around them to keep myself entertained. So spent a lot of time in water, and in about, I remember like my first trip to the aquarium, I was in grade 2. We had the most amazing time. Like I remember very clearly going to the touch pool, touching the animal, seeing big sharks. That was really cool. And when I was in grade 10, my science teacher, she told me about the course that the aquarium does, called the Young Biologist course. And
Yeah.
you apply for the course, you have to write a little application, and they choose 40 students out of everyone who applies. So in 2011,
Yeah.
I was very lucky to take part in that program, a week long of learning all about the ocean, and like just getting a full in-depth understanding of it so that we can also share the ocean with the people when we become volunteers after. So I
Yeah.
think that would be one of the main like, okay, this is what I need to be doing, and I need to make changes in my life to help the ocean.
That's actually crazy that when you were a little person, you were between the rock pools with the net, almost as though you were mirroring, you were, yeah, you were looking into the future, which is crazy amazing. So is this now how you get into the aquarium space? So is this how you submit, you manage to get in, and then what happens? Because you end up spending, I think, what, 8, 9 years there? That's a very long time. What happens from there?
So there's lots of different courses that the aquarium does, but the
Yeah.
Young Biologist course is the course where grade 10 pupils can apply and complete and then become a junior volunteer.
Yeah.
And I think the aquarium gave me my first job as well. So I started volunteering. I went
Yeah.
as much as I was lucky enough to be on a little scooter, so I could take myself to the aquarium for volunteer. So I
Yeah.
went through, and after, I think maybe that next year, they asked if I wanted to help with the mascot. So I was the mascot supervisor, and a few
Okay.
times I the mascot as well. So,
Wow.
one of those first jobs being like, okay, fine, I'll be a
Yeah.
mascot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It is just a bunch of things. The aquarium, there's so many opportunities there. If you give your time to the aquarium, you can go. So I did birthday parties, used to do tours for the kids, and I worked in membership place
Wow.
as well as in the volunteer stuff. So the front of house, behind the scenes where you prepare the food for the animals, get to feed the animals as well.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then I did the turtle rehab as well.
So I think I must have been, I think 20 or 21. I don't know if you remember, there was a time when Vodacom had those two mascots. There were two meerkats.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the two meerkats. I was the girl meerkat at a point. so if you'd pushed me over and the big head fell over, you would have found me under the mascot. So I completely know. I completely know what it's like to be a mascot. And you're dancing the whole time, and you're the life of the party. So I can imagine that was incredible. But I have a question for you. So this is a question that I get a lot, and I think it's discussed a lot in the ocean space and in the ocean tribe communities. Many people say that animals being kept in captivity is criminal, right? So the aquarium is obviously housing dolphins, sharks, beautiful animals. What is your view on that? So I'm just keen to hear your take on it.
The aquarium in Cape Town, it doesn't have any wet dolphins. The big animals is the sharks, and that's basically it. I don't. It depends on the way that the aquarium is. So the aquarium in Cape Town is based on to educate and to share with the people, with the public.
Yeah.
So the sharks in the aquarium, they regularly get released. The care of the animals in the aquarium is being, I've seen what goes on behind the scenes. Everyone is
Yeah,
super dedicated. They care so much for the animals.
sure.
And the penguins that are there, people also often think, why are we keeping the penguins there? But most of the penguins that are there can't be released. So they're either born in captivity, or some of them, they could be carrying, they don't want to risk infection of the groups of colonies that are outside. So all there for a specific reason. There's no harm going on. They are the most well looked after
Sure.
animals. They live a
Wow.
good life.
I love that because, so my argument every single time that it comes up is I think already it's a privilege to be able to get to the ocean, number one.
Yeah.
It's a privilege that you might be able to get on a boat and be on a scuba diving trip and be able to see dolphins in the wild, or sharks in the wild, or turtles in the wild. So, when I often think about it, I kind of say we need to realize that little people, those little school trips when you get to see your first set of animals. And I mean, for me, it was a big thing because, as a girl growing up in Soweto, there was no way I would have seen any of that. Do you know what I mean? So in order for us to be able to create the dreams, the unthinkable. And I mean, when you think about as well, when you look at our country, it can be a trick, especially when many people live below the breadline. If there's a school trip that can take kids to explore all of these animals, I think it's a beautiful thing and it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Most,
now, yeah,
yeah, like what you're saying, most people, they don't know what's in the ocean, and the aquarium is the
no,
looking hole. So you can see what's going on, and you can
yeah,
see this could inspire the next little person, and they could become an ocean conservationist. They can change their life, or maybe even whatever job place they choose to do, they can go
yeah.
and start the impact that they will have on the ocean, because they've seen these animals and they've seen the animals that live there.
Yeah, but Megan, I think what you're saying for me, I think this becomes my new take home point. When you say those animals are so well taken care of, I think that kind of changes the narrative in any space, because if we are making sure that the animals are, you said that the sharks are released every so often, penguins, there's a reason. But if you're telling me that, listen here, buddy, everyone is living to make sure that they are okay. Do you know what I mean? That's super important.
Yeah.
So I see that there's guys, if you have any questions for Megan, please do let us know. Thank you for joining us. Kevin says inspirational listening, great discussion. Nazoa says so true, Megan, not to mention the valuable rehabilitation services. I'm not sure what that talks to, but maybe you can kind of explain that bit. Captain Looney says there is a positive to having a way to educate the masses that the ocean creatures are affected even by people in the center of the country or the underprivileged, so long as it's done ethically. And I think that's what we completely agree on. Do you want to tell us what Nazoa is talking about here when she says the valuable rehabilitation services?
Yeah, the aquarium is not just the aquarium. They do a whole bunch of other things. So they do outreach programs. They take the aquarium to kids who can't get to the aquarium.
Sure.
And also, there are animals entangled. They have a little seal platform outside. So seals often get trapped in plastic, those things, because they're playful. They swim through them, and the aquarium has a specific team that'll go out and these seals and to remove the plastic from their necks. If there's a sunfish that gets stuck in the bay, they usually take it, make sure it's all good. They have a little quarantine section, and when it's ready for release, they release it. So same thing with the turtles. The turtles are there only for rehabilitation, and once they're big enough to get released, they get sent up to Durban and then they get released.
I love this so much. Tell us about the Turtle Rehabilitation Program that you are a part of.
I was part of it for about a year and a bit in 2015
Yeah.
when we realized how many turtles were getting washed up on the beaches. These turtles hatch further up the coast, and this Agulhas current and strong winds bring them down to Cape Town, and they use being in warmer water. So when they get to the Cape, it's a little bit cold, and
Sure.
they just get a bit tired, so they end up washed up on the beaches. So when
Yeah.
people are on the beach, they tend to find them on the sand, and they'll pick them up and bring them to the aquarium. The aquarium fetch
Okay.
them, and from there they get a full intense rehabilitation to make sure that they are 100% healthy. Unfortunately, most of the little turtles, when they come into the rehab, they already have little bits of plastic. So they'll notice,
What?
each turtle has their own little area, and they excrete little bits of plastic. So it's really intense how even the smallest turtles who have probably just a few months being born, they already have plastic in their system. So it's important. Yes, they get to come to the rehab, they get rehabilitated, but we also need to change the way we live because these little turtles are already eating plastic, which is horrible.
That is crazy. So, and I assume it's that microplastic. And I think I've seen it in your stories when you say, look what we found. And it's that tiny plastic that you sometimes can't even, the biggest stuff when you're walking on the beach, you'll always pick it up. But it's always the little buggers that you can't really get to, which get to the ocean floors and they freaking just go everywhere.
Yeah, but sometimes the bigger pieces of plastics actually they don't decompose, it just breaks down. The
Yeah.
sun, ocean, the water breaks it up
Yeah.
into smaller, and they end up being those tiny that fish, even the fish also eat plastic as well. Fish and the
Yeah.
turtle.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. Huh. Okay. Tell us what is worth seeing at at the aquarium. So when I visit, what's the one thing I should definitely go and see?
I mean, the whole aquarium, but one of its spots is the kelp forest for sure, because it's basically looks exactly like the kelp forest looks in the ocean, and it's amazing
Wow.
how they do that. So you see these huge fish, you see the kelp, and you see the kelp swaying as well, which is mind blowing.
Wow. So the kelp forests have to be the one thing that I have never seen anything like it. Anywhere that I've traveled, I have never in my life seen anything like it. And when we went diving there, I think it must have been like 12 degrees, but
I see.
it was like
Always.
the most, it was like the most magical thing I'd ever seen. It's like these thick golden leaves and these stalks. It's like a little magical forest that not everyone knows about, and it's like a little secret society. So I love fictional books. So Harry Potter, you name it. When I got in there, I felt like there was magic mixed with nature. And you know how like the ocean shows off, right? She's like massive next level, but then now it's a question of like how you enter it with these massive high, like it's insane.
Yeah,
Insane.
it's the most beautiful thing to see, and it's always one of my favorite things. Like you just dive down and you just feel so calm and at peace because it's incredible how these. It's just the ocean is such an amazing place. From the big kelp to the
Right.
tiny, is insane.
I remember there was a time when I was in Cape Town and I was going for a run along the beach, and there was one of those massive kelp forests that had washed up. And this poor guy who was cleaning the beach, he was trying to pull it, obviously trying to pull it to wherever he's taking it, but it was super long and you could see it was super heavy. So I'm like, oh my word. So of course the first thing I said is, can I take a picture of it? And he said, of course. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, let's carry it. Where's it going? And we were carrying this piece of kelp, but it's insanely amazing.
Yeah, they're huge. The best free diving.
So you also were a part of a project where you were remotely viewing fish underwater. Am I correct?
Yes. My research project
tell
for
us
my
about it.
So what I
Your
did
research project for
my diploma in nature conservation. Yes.
Yeah.
So we had to the research project as part of our final submission, and I was lucky enough to get to use BRAVs, which are baited remote underwater video cameras.
Yeah.
And what we do is you have this big little, so it's like a rig, so it's metal, and on one side you have a GoPro, and all of these things are like specific heights and everything. And on the other side, just a little bit higher than the GoPro, you have a canister with holes in it, so a PVC canister. And what we do is you fill the canister up with crushed sardines. So sardines are very oily fish, which like, fed out in the water. And this whole rig is attached to a rope, and you drop it down at a certain spot into the ocean, things to the bottom, and then obviously put the camera on, and it records whatever fish come into the view of the camera. So for the survey part, you have to look at the footage, and the sardines, what it does is it makes the bait plume, so it's obviously sends its scent out, and any fish that's within 500 meters about will start coming towards, okay, here's a bit of food, let me come and see what it is. And that way we can survey the fish, we can calculate, so we can look at what's the species richness and then their relative abundance. So I did a comparison from around Dai Island. So on one side of the island and the other side of the island, I looked at it for 4 different sessions. So it was about 8 hours of video to go through. You think 8 hours, that's easy, but you're going through and you're like pressing pause, going back the whole, because you need to look, okay, did I see this fish earlier? And then you notice when you see the most number of a certain species as well. Quite an interesting thing. I learned a lot, got seasick as well, but because of the chemistry.
I saw you mention that you got seasick. Hold on, little sidebar. Do you always get sick at sea, or is it just like it comes and goes?
I think there's only been one time when I haven't got seasick, and out of that's probably like 1 out of like 10 times. So I always I've tried everything, looking at third horizon, chewing ginger, does not work. Not for me.
Hold on. Have you tried a green apple? Have you tried a green apple? Girl, let me put you on this plug. I used to get sick on every single dive, every single scuba dive. I was the one who was over the boat, hurling my lungs out, feeding the fish. And I don't know how it came about. I had a green apple and it held my stomach. And can I tell you, I have never, not once, gotten seasick since. Every single time before I get on a boat, I have my apple. You can have the apple on the boat, just have the apple before you're like, here.
My friend is making sacrifices to the ocean. She's like, one person has to make a sacrifice, and I just happen to be the designated person.
No, I agree with you with making sacrifices to the ocean, but we can do like many other ones because like, I don't know, it's like the worst. It's the worst thing because then it doesn't stop. And then you're just like, oh my God, I just want to die. I want to die right now. It's horrible.
I feel when it's just about to happen, I'm like, try and calm down. But then once it starts, just don't stop. But I mean, once the boat's moving, then I feel a little bit fine. But that's why if I do scuba, I always try to like do a nice slow breath so that I'm like one of the last people to get into the boat so we can just go afterwards.
Yes. No, I'm with you there. And that's a good trick. That's definitely a good trick. Be the one who's like, when they're like, everybody's going up, and you're like, really, already? No, I'm with you. But girl, carry green apples, green apples. And if you try it and it works, please do tell me. Like, say, Zanz, you saved my life. Now someone else is giving gifts to the ocean. So I see, guys, if you have any questions for Megan and I, please do let us know. I see Aphrodivers goes deep. Aphrodivers go deep says microplastics are an issue. And Captain Looney says, you sold me, I want to go now. Listen here, kelp forests, Cape Town kelp forests are the future. Hello, everybody who's just joining the conversation. Captain Looney says, I get land sick. Listen here, I think with this midst of this pandemic, we have all gotten land sick. Like you're freaking laying on the bottom, you're laying on the floor and you're just crying for the ocean. So trust me, all of us have gotten sick. I get seasick all the time, but I'd rather be underwater. This is also true. Steph says a black label helps with seasickness. I don't know about that. I wouldn't try it just because I'm not fantastic with alcohol. I like green apples. Maybe that's why I don't get seasick. And sacrifices to the ocean. Okay, okay, okay. So, what does conservation mean to you? So when you think about conservation, what does that mean to you?
It means looking after what we have now for the future. And I mean, is no time like the present to be thinking about the future. It's a big thing. And I mean, not just towards ocean, but you know, the way we use land, the way we use our resources. I mean, the whole, have you heard of Earth Overshoot Day?
No. Earth Overshoot Day. No.
It's this calculation of the way that we are living, how many Earths we would need to sustain it. So from natural resources. So I think currently the Overshoot Day is super early in the year because it's basically when we've used all the resources, like natural resources on the planet, and we're basically living off like the artificial ways that we've been, not artificial, but you know, farming and that. So it's a cool calculator that you can actually use to see what your level of your sustainability in a way. So how much resources and like if you die, how far you work from your home, and you can take all of that into a calculation to see what pressure you're putting on the earth, basically. It's a super cool tool to make you rethink everything. And you have people like there's this girl that I know. She's a vegan, lives close to work and everything, and her Earth Overshoot Day is also like way over. But it opens your mind. Okay, no, there's more things that I can do to help. But conservation is just looking after the natural resources and the resources that we have left.
So it's interesting that you mentioned this measure, right? Because I don't know if you know this guy, I listened to him, his Sadhguru, and he was saying that there's a calculation that says that if the whole world wants to live like an average American, we would need 4 planets. We would need 4 planets in order to be able to make that work. And he was saying that we need to reimagine the idea of health and wealth, because we can't still be looking at the American standard as the standard. Because if we've got all of these third world countries wanting to be a middle class American, we're going to burn up. We're going to burn up before we even get there.
That's exactly what Earth Overshoot Day is.
Yeah. I think it's an insane thing. So I'm just going to come back in here. Captain Looney says, I've been worried with this pandemic, washing and chemicals. We used to say, don't use so much water. Now it's wash, 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 and so forth. And that's also true. The whole time there's a constant shift in the whole conservation space. But I 100% echo what you're saying when you're saying we need to take care of our planet. You know, this is all we have. And all of our everyday, but hold on, what would you say we can do? What would you, so you spoke about the vegan who she doesn't eat animals. So she's already saying, listen, I'm doing my bit. She lives close to work, but her score is still high. So what more can we be doing to be better?
Yeah, I would say anything that you actually do to help will make a difference. So it doesn't matter, even with normal living conditions, like with plastic, you can't avoid certain, and also certain, it also depends on your budget personally and the way that you live.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I think I saw Haley from the aquarium, she was talking about buying fruit from Food Lovers Market. They have the ones, the loose fruits for like 40 Rand. Yeah. And then they have the ones that's in the packet, the little strip packets, which are 10 Rand per kilogram. So, I mean, if you're going to choose like that, I mean, not everyone can go and, just spend that extra 30 Rand on fruit. You want to go for the cheaper option, which will be more, good for your budget and for you.
Sure.
So, every little change that you do, every time you say, I'm not going to use a straw, I'll rather take a glass bottle of Coke than buying a plastic bottle, that would help. So the more small changes you make, the more easier you realize you actually did to do these small things.
Yeah. I second that so much. I'm pretty sure the girl, there's a girl, Leah, green girl, Leah, and she talks about intersectional environmentalist stuff. And she pretty much says, it's not easy for everyone to be able to save the planet in the way that everyone assumes. And you're right, because if I can get more for the Rand, then I'm going to go with the plastic, if that's what it means, because individual survival sometimes trumps, you have to feed your family. So,
exactly.
And I mean, I think that's part of the conversations that we're having, that the idea oftentimes of conservation comes from a privileged state. It assumes that you are able to, I know when I get organic produce, it comes in paper bags, it doesn't come in plastic, but you're paying for the premium. And not everyone has that opportunity to. But at the same time, I know that in many Black and brown communities, plastics live a whole life before they leave the house. So that plastic bag is going to carry someone's shoes to the next house, and it's going to carry something else back to your house. And it will, I remember when I was little, my gran used to buy these little mats, and they were made of plastic. The little mat, and my grandmother still has them, and on a hot summer's day we get those plastic mats, put a blanket over it and you have a party. So I think there is efforts, and I mean, when you think about it, those efforts were in place before anyone was even talking conservation, at least in my community. Those mats were already happening, and that saving of your plastics was already happening, and we never ever threw away plastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a simple thing. I know nowadays I try to, my thing is always to look at something. Do I really need it? Is it really covered in like a lot of plastic? And then if I have to take it, I will try and, make sure it's disposed of properly. Try to recycle it. I only eco-brick if it's, specific things that can't be recycled, I'll stick into an eco-brick. And then also make sure that the eco-brick goes to a place that's going to use it, so that it's not just all in, a whole lot of eco-bricks in the garage. No, these eco-bricks are going to a school that's going to build a nice little veggie garden. So it's very much, depends on the person, but everyone can make a difference and make contributions towards conservation and to save our planet.
Yeah. And I'm 100% behind you on that. So every single thing that we do matters. And I mean, I also wanted to share, because there's this whole plastic free July that's going on. And it's such a fantastic initiative, but we sometimes go so hard that we want to be so perfect, and we realize that it's not possible to be perfect. sometimes you'll be stuck in a moment where you need to get whatever it is that you need to get. And the idea of perfection, perfection does not trump everyday effort. So your everyday efforts leads to the greater goal, but it changes your mindset. So if the whole time you're pressing yourself down on what you're not getting right, that kind of creates a conflict. But if there's a place where every single day you're making an effort, I think that's exactly what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
So Tanda says, yes, let's reimagine what wealth means for successful conservation of our beautiful planet. Absolutely. Nazora says, absolutely. We often need to address other social issues in parallel to direct conservation issues. And that is the biggest thing, especially in the conservation space. Captain Looney says, truth. It's a struggle to find the balance, but I believe it is a goal in itself to strive for that perfect balance. And it's true. The intersectional spaces, the whole time when we talk conservation, is a crazy thing, because even when we're looking at fish, looking at how much fish we have in a particular area, when we say people can only fish between certain hours and they can't fish outside of certain hours, how is that affecting the communities that live around a particular space? Because some people don't have the opportunity to, let's say, fish in that time, which then ends up making criminals out of people who are not criminals. Do you know what I mean? So the whole time it's this ebb and flow. And I think it's such an important thing that we're actually looking at our communities and we're saying, how can we serve in the midst of our conservation efforts?
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So Aphrodite says, I think the fact that we've become aware of it, we can channel our energy into manifesting the difference. I know it sounds like the Zen approach, but it goes, and it's true. So tell us, so you mentioned something to me that obviously blew me away. Everything blows me away, but this blew me even more away. You said teaching ocean conservation through human experience. Tell me about that.
So I work with a couple of organizations, and the one is I Am Water. And what I Am Water does is takes kids from schools who live within 5 kilometers of the beach and who don't go to the beach, or they have never seen the water. And what we do is we do a 2-day course with them. We teach them how to snorkel. We teach them about the importance of the ocean and the animals that live along the coastline. And they do beach cleanups with them. And the fact is that they get to experience the ocean. So for most of them, sometimes they don't know how to swim. The first time being in the water, the first time with a mask and a snorkel. And it's crazy how kids on the first day arrive and they're super nervous. And the second day where they just want to go in and they want to stay in there longer. And many of them afterwards, we ask them what they're going to, how was the course for them. And a lot of them love the ocean after that. They want to share it with whoever they want. They want to look after, make change in life. So it's crazy how conservation through experience. They learn to conserve the ocean once they learn to love the ocean.
Wow. So I think that's phenomenal, but I want to go back. You're saying these kids live within 5 kilometers of the ocean, but some have never seen the ocean and some don't know how to swim in the ocean.
Yeah, so most of them don't know how to swim. They have seen the ocean most likely, but they've never seen underneath. So they'll splash in the waves, but they don't really know what's underneath. And that's what we get to show them.
Sure. That's incredible. Do you have one memory that sticks out in your head from the years that you've been working with I Am Water, and you're just seeing these little faces light up when they see the magic that's under there? Do you have a memory that kind of just, like...
Yeah. I think there's two things that stand out to me. When I go to the ocean nowadays, I kind of overlook simple things, not simple things, but like the anemones and the urchins. But the general people
Sure.
haven't seen before. And, you know, anemones and oceans are so abundant over the coastline. And the way that
Yeah.
they, oh my word, what is this spiky thing over here? And just the way that they at first, you know, most children, I mean, I was one of them as well, who would, to get little
Yeah.
limpets, I them off with a shell, or I would squash certain things. But now I
Wow.
get to teach, you know, these are living animals. You shouldn't be harming them. This is food for
Yeah.
someone else who eats, you know, this and controls
Yeah.
these things. But with the actual um, teaching of the children, I remember this one girl, I don't remember her name, but she was so tiny and she wouldn't go into the water. She was like, no way, he's not going to go in. She would step in, but then like literally this much water, and she was like, I don't do it. So then I asked, I was like, you know, you have nothing to worry about. I'm going to be with you the whole time. So what we do is we also,
Yeah.
there's a certain child that needs just a little bit more attention. We'll switch so that that child has one coach with it. And
Yeah.
I eventually got this little girl to literally on her knees, holding my hands like the tightest thing, slowly stick her mouth in. And she was just like this. And she was like, no, 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 I'm not going to do it. I was like, just slowly, just take your time. You're not going to be
Yeah.
happen to you, I'm right here. Put your feet down, we're safe, and everything's fine. And eventually she slowly got comfortable. And by the next day, she was like in the water and would not come out. So it's like a little would not go in and never wanted to come out afterwards. She was like,
Wow.
can we go in deeper? See this. It's the most wonderful thing to just, you know, feel the way that
Sure.
the perception of the ocean completely changes. Because most kids are actually scared of kelp. So the minute they see it, they kind of get uncomfortable. But after the courses, they love it.
Yes. No, I could definitely see why a little person might be scared of the kelp because it looks like a magic forest. So
Yeah.
I could see that. But like, so there's two things that are like so crazy for me, right? I probably came across my first anemone when I was 27, 28. So right, for me, the ocean remains the most mystical thing because it was only in 2016 that I discovered outside of so as a black girl growing up, and I have to kind of put it that way because it makes sense. Anytime when we went to the sea, so my mom was from the Transkei and she had her family also in the Eastern Cape. And anytime we went to the sea, you can only like go in this little much. Only your toes can be covered, not one more piece of you, and we grow up with these big stories that surround us, about snakes that take children in the water and, these, when the waves come and they pull back, and there's just so much fear that we grow up with that, I mean, it goes back to, I was probably that little girl in 2016. So I jump into the water. It's a snorkel trip. I had never been in a, bless you. I'd never been in a mask or snorkel in 2016. I mean, what? I was 26, 27, never in my life. And before we jump out of the boat, and of course I said, pick me, I'm coming with on the snorkel trip. Do I even know how to snorkel? No, I'll figure it out when I get there. And so I think as the boat stops, this one girl looks at me, and I'll never forget because she was wearing a hijab. And the guy's like, everybody kit up. And I'm like, kit up. And I'm looking around, what the hell's going on? What am I supposed to do? And she says, have you ever been snorkeling? I'm like, she's like, why don't you say something? I'm like, girl, I ain't about to be that person. And she says, no, you just breathe, right? How crazy. She says, you just breathe in and out through the snorkel because you can't actually breathe in through the mask because then you're going to have a problem. And let me tell you, we jump into the water, I'm drowning. And everyone's like, check part one, it's physically impossible to be drowning, like physically impossible. And so when I get out of my head and I stop freaking out, you know, Zandi says to Zandi, hey, you do know how to swim. What's your issue? Like, just swim. So I start swimming. And then at our second dive stop, I was behind the dive master, picking up little shells on the ocean floor. And just like, you know, and for me, it wasn't, you know, no one was there to, you know, I didn't have a Megan to say, it's okay. I kind of had to like Megan myself, like, calm down.
Yeah.
But like in the calm, on our second dive stop, not even 20 minutes later, I was holding my breath at the bottom of the ocean, picking up little shells and just saying, oh my God, right? And it's just that. And you're introducing that to little people, little me's, which is
Yes.
just
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Also, the snorkel, getting kids comfortable with the snorkels is the most, like, not complicated, but it's also entertaining. So I always tell them it's like you're drinking a really thick milkshake and you have to suck through the straw. And then you'll see, like, you know, we say your nose is blocked, so you have to breathe through your mouth. So you go, and it gets them, like, after you get there. But no, most of the kids also have, like, you know, the stories of the crazy things in the ocean that, you know, you shouldn't go in. I know a girl once told me on the course that she said that kelp drowns the children. It takes the children and drowns them. And I was like, you don't have any body. And then I actually got her to, like, go to and touch it. And I told her, you know, it's just a smooth thing. You don't need to worry about it. And she was fine after that. But I mean, it takes some convincing. They, you know, you've been told these stories for all of their life. It's a difficult thing.
And these stories continue to this day. To this day, these stories continue. And that's why I am so thankful for the work that you do and for the work that organizations like I Am Water Foundation does, because it's almost ending the trauma line and it's ending the fear line. And that's so important. We need to be doing that. We need to start approaching the water as a friend, not as a big snake carrier, a monster. So I see that there's been a whole lot of love in here. So Inga says, that's so profound, Megan. You protect what you love and you love when you experience its beauty. That's so true. Captain Looney says, I love the way you explain the spiky things to the kids. I love this. Tara says, telling children that anemone is an animal always blows their minds. Foolproof way to grab their attention. That's true, right? Tell us more, because for a long time I didn't think it was an animal. I just thought it was like
a little plant of sort.
That black spiky thing just kind of hanging out somewhere. Until I read some book. I think I read some book. Oh, hold on, it's my little spearfishing book. That's when I realized that they were
animal.
Tell us. They're alive.
Yeah, so I mean, the anemones are super. I mean, I know you can touch them, but you obviously don't touch their mouth, which is the middle part. You usually just gently touch the outside. And I know I also get the kids to touch the urchins if they are brave enough, because I mean it's a big spiky. Yeah. So I was like, just go slowly with your two fingers, and then you always get the one that touches it like that. I'm not gonna touch it.
No,
it's very cute. Like, I mean, you can literally show it on your hand, and you can see how they move their spikes to walk, which is really cool.
Even me, I'm not ready. Even me, I'm not ready. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Amelia says, I remember the day she literally flourished with your guidance and support. It's freaking incredible. I don't want you to stop with little ones. I want to teach their parents too. And people like you in 2016 love these stories. And that's true, right? There's so much work that we need to do with the adults, because these adults like me are going to then, like me in 2016, they give birth to little people and they've also never experienced the ocean. So they just pass on the fear, and it just goes on from generation to generation, and no one goes into the ocean. So tell us about your beach cleans. So I know in your stories, that's the one thing that's always showing up in your stories. Tell us about the beach cleans.
I work as the operations manager for the beach co-op, and the beach co-op's a NPC, so a non-profit company. And what we do is we host cleanups all along the coastline. So before COVID, we would probably be doing a cleanup most weekends or at least twice a month. And we use this little citizen science known as the Dirty Dozen methodology. And what it is 12 items of litter which have been identified as the most problem causing along our coastline. And we ask people who come to our cleanups to note down how many of these items that they see. So they'll all get it, well, they'll be in groups and they have a clipboard, and the person with the clipboard is the scribe. So everyone picks up whatever litter they find, and if they pick up any of the Dirty Dozen items, sorry about that, sorry, if they pick up any of the Dirty Dozen items, they mark that down as a tally system. So after every cleanup, we count all of that together and we release the stats from the cleanup. So item of the Dirty Dozen was the most common, how many items we picked up, and the weight of those items as well.
Sure. That's incredible, because that means that you're not, and every
new moon, they do a cleanup on Surface Corners rocky shore. So not a Dirty Dozen cleanup, but we clean up that little rocky shore every single new moon. At low tide, go out, along the coast.
Why specifically every new moon?
Sorry, let me just plug in. The new moon is when you have the lowest low tide. So the tide will be, it's usually about, well, it changes, but it would expose the rocks basically. So that rocky shore, the section, the wind gets pushed in that side. So any plastic that's in the ocean would get washed up into that area with the high waves. And when the tide goes, we can then go into those rocky shore areas and find the bits of plastic that's usually full of sand. So you'll find these, like those translucent fresh produce bags. Find those over there full of sand. We find clothing there. And occasionally we've been finding anemones which have been eating bits of plastic. So they've been monitoring that, and they've actually written a paper about it, which should come out soon, about the different plastics along the coastline and the anemone ingestions of it.
That is so incredible. Like, I didn't know that. Like, that is freaking amazing. But now, what I find amazing about the work that you're doing is that it almost feels like it's not only a beach cleanup, it's intentional. There's an intentional aspect to it. Like when you talk about the Dirty Dozen, when you are documenting how many times you came across that, and all the teams are aware of the Dirty Dozen, what mostly affects the space. And based on that, over the years, you'll know what has increased, what has decreased, how are we as humans changing our ways, I assume, right? Because how we change our ways would show in your study, perhaps over, whatever you collect over 5 years, 10 years, and all of that.
Yeah, so there's definitely long-term monitoring of it. So we have data from 2017 all the way through to 2020. And at every one of our beach cleanups, we do the Dirty Dozen methodology. And it's also when people come to the beach and when they're told to, okay, you need to count how many of these 12 items you pick up, but you pick up all the litter. They come to the end of the cleanup and they're like, wow, we found so many lollipop sticks. It's crazy. And we're like, yes, these plastic lollipop
Scuba divers.
Sticks, they never used to be plastic before. True,
Scuba divers.
But I mean, it's also from the divers that come out. And those sticks used to be paper. So
yeah,
we can then look at, okay, what are the most common things? We can see where the source is. You have to count those deeper bits of research. So the data is available. So if anyone wants to do a specific study, they can do that. I've recently had someone ask us for all the numbers we have for cigarette butts. Cigarette butts isn't one of the dirty dozen, but that's only because there's so many on the beach that we don't get accurate results from it. So people, after they pick up like 20, they're like, there's 5,000 of them. I can't keep track of how many I'm picking up. So it's one of those things that, you know, we have data from some cleanups, which someone is using for their research, and it gets used. So it's available and it's open to everyone. And we've actually recently, because of COVID, we started a Dirty Dozen toolkit. So you can go to the beach by yourself or with a small group in your socially distance, and you can go and collect data for the Dirty Dozen so that this research is continued. We have, you know, full long-term data.
Yeah. So Captain Looney says he's incredibly inspired, and Kevin says not all scuba divers. No one said it was all scuba divers. Take it easy. But so how do we find out about your beach cleanups? So when you have beach cleanups, if I'm in Cape Town, how am I going to find out about it?
Okay, so you can follow the Beach Co-op on Instagram. It might be in my bio. There should be a link into my bio. And from there, you can go to it. We usually share our cleanups mostly on Facebook, but it starts as an event on Facebook and we share it on Instagram as well. So you can definitely see it from there. And you can also get the details on how to do your own Dirty Dozen cleanup, or use the little app that we joined to, instead of downloading the form, you can just download the app on your phone, search the Dirty Dozen on the app, and then you can collect data from that.
Sure, that's incredible. Megan, I can't believe it's almost an hour that we've been talking. Like, it's almost an hour. Like, we've got 2 minutes left. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining us on this live. It's been phenomenal. And I mean, I've learned so much about conservation, and I've learned you are our hero, and I'm so inspired by the work that you do. And as we come to a close, give us your nuggets of wisdom that we must all think about as we leave this space. I've already learned so much, but just shower us. It could be like a quote that you live by, or it could be whatever you want to share.
I've been lucky. I've been inspired by lots of amazing women in ocean conservation and science, and I mean, I try and just keep up with, you know, what they also are doing. But I find the simplest thing is to do what you can, you know, whatever is in your capacity, do the bits that you can do, share your knowledge with people, you know, don't just keep it to yourself. And explore the ocean, because then you realize, you know, how important it is. I mean, we get almost 80% of our oxygen from the ocean, so we need to be looking after it.
We should have a vested interest in making sure that it's healthy.
Yeah, for sure.
Megan, thank you so much. Guys, I think Megan's just said it. Take care of the ocean. 80% of our oxygen comes from it. Be better. And I think it's important to say again, right? Every single effort matters. Every single thing that you can do to limit your plastic use, to limit how you live in a way that's not sustainable, do it. Everything matters. And with that said, thank you so much for this live. And I'm going to end it right here. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening.
Thanks,
awesome.
You too. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.